Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and today we're going to talk about competitive two-player card games and why they're very sadly mostly leaving my collection and possibly not coming back for a long time. So, behind me we have Dice Throne, we have Codex, we have Exceed, BattleCon, and that's just what I'm getting rid of at the moment. But there have been a lot more over the years that have slowly made their way out of my collection, and this past week I had an epiphany while playing Marvel Champions. So Marvel Champions is a game that I was very much on the fence about. I just did a review about it recently, a few days ago, and part of the reason I ended up keeping this was because I took a good long hard look at my collection and realized that a lot of other games didn't really belong there. Now what I mean by that is that a two-player card game, and this is not just something that applies to card games, but it tends to apply a lot more to card games. Two-player card games very often rely on knowing the cards. Part of the game, a big part of the game, is not just in knowing the strategy. When you pick other two-player games, or any game for that matter, there's a lot of strategy involved, but a lot of it comes down to learning the game. A lot of it comes down to understanding the mechanics at play, and then through multiple plays, picking up the best way to play the game and to eventually clinch a win and strategically destroy your opponent and whatnot. And there always is some degree of nuance and strategy in those games, but it doesn't really force an entire subset of learning a million cards onto you. Where you have games like Magic the Gathering, or any less complicated but still complex version of a two-player competitive card game, any of these games behind me, the lightest of which is Dice Throne. But let's start with Codex and BattleCon. Codex and BattleCon are both games, not Codex, Exceed and BattleCon. Exceed and BattleCon are games that the designer in the rulebook literally says that this game is designed to be played multiple times, back and forth, head to head, hitting at each other, learning the decks, learning the nuances. This character's a little faster, this character has a little bit more defensive abilities, this character has a hard attack and can push you back, and each character has their own nuance and their way they play the game. This is not a game that's meant to be casually pulled out and played with a friend who never played the game before, and he or she will have any chance of winning. This is a game that's meant to be played with the same specific people, learning their characters and growing together. It's not a game where you can just say, "Hey John, I know you love game X, Y, and Z. Come on over here, give BattleCon a shot. Let's see how it goes." You'll destroy them. You'll absolutely destroy them in a handful of games. The level of knowledge they have to take on before they can truly be competitive is just too far a gap. Or Magic the Gathering, a game that I used to play a ton, and now I don't really play at all, but even if I draft it, when I draft it casually with my friends, the ones who actually still play Magic the Gathering, I get destroyed. They know the ecosystem far too well for me to have any shot at a head-to-head two-player card game. Codex is a game where you literally have a giant book that you have to leaf through, and you have to pick out your cards as you go to counter your opponent's moves based on this entire book in front of you. That's too much of a level of involvement for a casual person to pick up and hope to have any realistic shot at winning. That's a game that requires mastering the game. That's a game that requires depth. That is not a game that is meant to be played casually by people who don't play that specific game. Not people who don't play games, but people who don't play that specific game. Yomi's another example of this. Yomi's again another game where it's basically rock, paper, scissors, but there's nuance to the characters, there's nuance to the game. But that's a game that is meant to be played repetitively. Combo Fighter, another game I got recently, same thing. Game after game after game. These are games that are not meant to be played casually. They're games that are meant to be played as you know the characters, as you know the cards, as you grow to learn the ecosystem and the deck, and yet it's a competitive game. Dice Throne is the lightest of the series here, and even Dice Throne, someone who knows the characters, someone who knows, oh, well, this character has stun, and this one has flight, and this one has evade, someone who knows the various characters and knows the way they play and the way they interplay, will consistently do far better than someone who doesn't. These are systems that are not meant to be played casually or not meant to be played with random gamers. They're meant to be played by people who know the games. Contrast that with other two-player games like Battle Line, like Hanamakoji, like Land, Air, and Sea, or Air, Land, and Sea. Those games have a handful of cards. Those are regular games that you can just introduce your fellow player to, teach them the rules, and within 2 or 3 games they can be competitive if there's someone who's played these games before. But they're not giant learning systems where you have to figure this out. Now, this is not a problem only with two-player card games. This can be other systems as well. I just find it particularly prevalent to two-player card games. Core Worlds is a great example. Core Worlds is a game I got rid of. Great deck builder, thoroughly enjoyed it, until I realized that there were so many cards and they varied so drastically, and as you went world by world you had to pick up on the cards. I realized over multiple plays that someone who knew the game just completely destroyed people who didn't know the game. It was too much of a competitive advantage to playing the game and to knowing the cards, to knowing the ecosystem. I think cards are a big part of this because of the nature of how cards work. If you pick a general game on my shelf, you pick a game like a Kemet, and Kemet's a good midway point. The Kemet's a little harder. Kemet has a lot of power tiles going on, so you do have to know those power tiles, but even then, all the power tiles combined, even with the expansion, you're talking about 16 times 4, that's 64 power tiles that people have to learn to really get a good feel for the game. Versus any card-based game is going to have more than 64 cards. And even in those 64, there's a lot of duplicates, by the way. But any card-based game is going to have so many cards. The nature of a card system, whether it's two-player or not, is that many cards, that many unique cards and unique rewards and mechanics on each card, it allows for too much of a gap for people who know the system well to do so much better than people who don't know the system well. And when I realized that, which I guess not really that much of a surprise, but when I realized that I don't have space for these in my collection. I don't pull these games out specifically because of that. I don't bother pulling out BattleCon because most of the people who I would pull it out with aren't people who are going to be around to play it a lot. Which means for most of these games, I really only have 2 or 3 choices of people who are valid opponents. My wife, and then I have 2 fellow gamers who are consistent enough that they might be people who I can play it with. But even then, I kind of have to play it a lot for it to be worth it. There's no point playing BattleCon once in a while. There's no point playing Exceed or Codex once in a while. These are games you want to dive into and to play frequently and with the same people for them to have any real chance of being worthy of being in your collection. Cooperative games don't have that problem. Marvel Champions, Lord of the Rings LCG, Arkham Horror LCG, Spirit Island, which is not 2-player, but could be 2-player, but Spirit Island has a ton of cards, every single card is another power, there's so much to learn there. But in a cooperative ecosystem, you're working on the same team. The fact that I might know the cards in Marvel Champion better doesn't stop us from having a fun time. The fact that I know my Black Panther leadership deck and I know all the cards and I already know how to, I should really hold this one and I should apply that upgrade to that character and this one's really just meant to soak up damage from the boss. Those things, the fact that I know that won't stop you and I from having a good time when we play it because we're on the same team. Cooperative games work that way. Another problem you're going to find this with is in campaign games. A long, hard, drawn-out campaign game, I don't think it would work for me if it was competitive. For that same reason, you have to have the same players, you have to be playing it consistently. Versus cooperative, it changes the whole narrative. Spirit Island as a cooperative game is thoroughly enjoyable because when I know those cards better, the fact that I've played it 14 times and you've played it twice, doesn't matter that I know the powers will come out. And I know that these 2 powers really synergize well because we're on the same team. 2-player card games have a space for a lot of people in their collection. But the way I play games, the way that my group plays games, the way that I play games with my spouse, it does not have, they do not have a place in my collection, unfortunately. And most of these games at this point have been relegated to a backup list. I keep a backup list of games I'm always interested in getting back, but I'm not actively pursuing right now. It's the knowledge, it's one of those ways I handle my FOMO. So instead of saying goodbye, I lie to myself and tell myself that I'll get it later. I have a whole video on how to keep a good collection, and this is one of the tips I should have put in there. But if you lie to yourself often enough and well enough, it's much easier to say goodbye. Because I'm not saying goodbye to BattleCon, I'm not saying goodbye to Exceed, I'm not saying goodbye to Codex. I'm just saying I'll get you guys back later. You know, when I retire, when my gaming group changes, when the dynamic shifts and I suddenly want to play those games again, I'll get them back later. That's a good trick to letting go of games, by just pretending that you'll get it back later, even if you never do. Don't tell them. It's okay. But anyways, that's really it. That's my opinion on 2-player card games. And again, it's not specifically 2-player card games. It's the genre in general, just having an abundance of information that makes it so that one player will dominate the other players. That kind of infrastructure, that kind of ecosystem, I think only lends itself well to either cooperative games or player groups that really do have that dynamic. If you have that friend that you're playing Friday Night Magic with, 3 times a week or whatever it is, great. If it works for you, it works for you. But if you're keeping one of these games, if you're keeping Yomi, Codex, any of these games on your shelf, hoping that you'll actually get it to the table consistently, but realizing kind of reluctantly that you actually haven't played it in 2.5 years and you don't know when you're going to play it next, it might be time to say goodbye. It might be time to realize that for you as well, these games are not a good fit for your collection. That's basically it. That's my take on it. Let me know if you enjoy these games. Let me know your thoughts on it. I know Dice Throne in particular, I debated getting rid of it because I know they have that cooperative expansion kind of adventure system coming out, and I do plan on playing that. I liked Dice Throne. Very pretty game. Exceedingly pretty. But it didn't hold me enough, and I probably will try that cooperative one. But if you've played any of these games, if you have any thoughts on these games, let me know in the comments down below. If you disagree with my opinion, if you agree with my opinion, if you decide to purge a bunch of games because of this video, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you guys and interact with you guys. That's basically it. I'm Alex from Board Game Co. You can come to our website, boardgameco.com. You can buy, sell, or trade your way to a better collection. In our trading system, we have an algorithm. It assigns a point to every single title, so you don't have to worry about haggling back and forth. It's all very transparent, very easy to use. If you're kind of sick of trying to trade games on Board Game Geek, haven't really gotten anywhere with that, and you're looking for something that actually works, that actually gets you a trade when and how you want it, give us a shot, give us a try. I'll be happily walk you through it, help you out, and all that. But yeah, like this video down below. You can subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, watch some more videos, and until next time, have a good one.